I have the pleasure of introducing you to one of the authentic Disney legends, a man who started here in the early 1930s and is still contributing to animation today, Mr. Joe Grant. You started off as an artist, thinking visually, and then you came to the studio and you eventually became involved in story.
Right.
Did you ever foresee that you would be using those tools to educate people or to propagandize? It turned out to be a fantastically effective way to get to people.
Most of my time during the war was hiding behind a drawing board and shooting from there. It was not planned on, but I mean, it all came and dropped on us, and it changed the whole spirit of the country. I mean, people seem to forget what that really meant. I think this terror situation is akin to it in a way. But there it was mandatory that everybody play a role, and they didn't.
Tell us a little about Dick Huemer. You had a long partnership with Dick Huemer, and he was one of the genuine pioneers of animation.
From Fleischer, yeah. One day Walt came in and said, I got somebody out here I don't really know what to do with right now. And it turned out to be Dick Huemer. I said, bring him over. And we got going. And I realized, for one thing, he could use a typewriter. He could write. And we got together on stories. And from that point on, all the way up to a double, for that matter. And then for some reason, really, we seemed to get separated, and that was about it. But it was a great relationship, wonderful. We did most of Fantasia together, with him lying on the couch, putting records on while I'm drawing.
What about the military presence? How did the studio change in terms of the atmosphere and just the general day-to-day workings of the studio?
Well, you felt almost naked if you weren't wearing a uniform, and very unimportant. But they made themselves felt, in some sense, useful here and there, but Walt still wanted the same Disney quality at a much smaller price. And we got the cost plus 10% or something like that, which he overran in every case. So I think that was Walt's greatest contribution as far as the war effort was concerned.
It seems like oil and water, let's put it that way, mixing artists and military personnel, especially officers.
Well, the artist, of course, is a revolutionary. He's free and he wants to do his thing. But in this case, I think they all settled down to the idea that this was war.
And you were all on the same side?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember physical changes at the studio, just the atmosphere of arriving to work in the morning?
No, the physical changes of things that were going on in your home. You had your block leader, walked around at night, see whether there's any glimmer of light. We went through the gasoline shortage, we went through a food shortage. So there's where things changed. I mean,
I would imagine you'd have to have a top security clearance to work on some of the films you did.
Oh yes, I still have the admittance card, yeah, sure.
To Fuehrer's Face is an old favorite of mine and many people's, but the first time I heard that song, it was the Spike Jones record that became a big hit. But the film preceded the record, didn't it?
Yes, quite a bit ahead, but it was in contention for a long time until we decided to really make it a very wild and irresponsible piece. It was inspired by the Chaplin film.
Modern Times?
Right, and the belt line and all that sort of thing. It was originally called Donald in Nutsyland, and the Fuehrer's Face came as a result of Ollie Wallace's song. And there's always been a problem with the song in as much as who was responsible for the title. And there's a cartoon that Roy Williams had made showing Ollie Wallace in great fear, but there were two Nazis about to murder him. And he kept pointing to us behind the wall as the ones who were responsible for it.
Was this an idea that just came along, or was it commissioned in any way? Did Walt have any ideas about doing something on this subject matter?
When you mentioned Walt, he was involved in everything, of course. But most of the stuff came from the reading and what information we had. After all, it was rather sparse in the beginning. We knew very little about pictures that inspired education for death and all that sort of. We didn't want to lose our image for satire.
So using Donald was a great tool.
Well, it was international character. I mean, so it was received in a friendly way everywhere.
Am I glad to be a citizen of the United States of America?
The new spirit was actually commissioned by the Secretary of the Treasury, was it not, Mr. Morgenthau?
That's true, but he didn't see the material we had on it. Mm-hmm. He knew about it. But when we did go back there, of course, Henry Morgenthau was an awesome figure who had a Great Dane at the side of his desk. And if you looked under it, you saw him wearing carpet slippers. As we arrived, it was Walt and Dick Huemer and myself. And we were all going to walk in. And he said, no, I just want Walt. So he closed the door. And we heard Walt in there. Walt had not been aware of this story to speak of. And he had to ad-lib the whole thing, which, of course, he did a great job. And when he came out, why, even the Great Dane was laughing. So, about the size of it.
But the new spirit was designed to get Americans to pay their taxes and understand why it was important to pay them.
Things moving, yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was semi-humorous. I mean, it wasn't much.
Then there's something important you can do.
Oh, boy, I'll do it.
You won't get a medal for doing it.
Oh, that's all right.
It may mean a sacrifice on your part.
I'll do it anyway.
But it will be a vital help to your country in this hour of need. Shall I tell you what it is?
Yes, what is it? Tell me.
Shall I?
Tell me what it is.
Your income tax.
Income tax?
When you made a film like Education for Death, what did you hope to accomplish?
Just to make it visible to people what was going on. I mean, and you couldn't do it in a better way than with the graphics and with the cartoon. It wasn't a cartoon, it was actually an editorial. Mm-hmm. I think it did the job.
And so he marches on with his millions of comrades, trampling on the rights of others. For now, his education is complete. His education for death.
One of the things about Victory Through Air Power is that as serious as it is, mm-hmm. And as purposeful as it is, there's also that history of aviation section that uses humor. Was that something that Walt kept in mind at all times, that not to lose the audience in that sense?
There wasn't any change in his character. I mean, he still was a humorist, and he still put all that in pictures, but he did balance the thing out at the point where he made it clear that Seversky's idea was correct. Mm-hmm. And I don't think Washington agreed with him 100%, but we made our mark. Mm-hmm. And you can see today that air power is still dominant, mm-hmm. more than ever.
And Walt obviously was a patriotic man, and he must have supported this idea wholeheartedly.
He threw himself into the thing just as enthusiastic as everybody else. Mm-hmm. But you have to remember, he was running a studio at the same time. And we had pictures like Dumbo coming out. It was a thoughtful time, I must say.
This may seem simplistic, but did you feel like you were still working for Walt, or did you feel you were working for Uncle Sam?
You could see him with the Uncle Sam hat on, but as far as that's concerned, he was the image. Mm-hmm. And the whole thing with the studio at that time, you had to understand, was pleasing Walt. That was the mind. And in as much as this, I would say, I shouldn't say it, but the impact of Washington was just secondary to.
What was it like for a couple of cartoonists to walk into the Pentagon? That must have been pretty daunting.
It was sort of an experience you have first going into Disneyland. Boy, you know, as a general at every desk, I mean, and papers flying all over the place, and all kinds of weird carts carrying you around. I mean, it was very exciting. But Walt sort of took it in his stride, and we saw many celebrities that were there in uniform, and everybody wanted to make the impression that they were involved and they weren't busy.
Which celebrities are you thinking of? Are there any that impressed you particularly?
Darryl Zanuck, he's standing over in the corner wearing an overcoat down to his heels. He made the most unmilitary-looking person you could possibly see. But what was interesting about it in our trip to Washington was the importance that everybody played back there in the way of the celebrities, the authors, the playwrights, and so on. And we did spend some time with Professor Hooton, who was an anthropologist. And his job from Washington was to find out if they could put a human being in the machine gun turret at the back of a plane. Also, he was a psychologist, and we gave him Reason and Emotion, which he thought was terrific. He sort of honored both Dick and I by referring to us as intellectuals, and that set us up.
Oh, well, you must have dined out on that for a while.
Right, we used it.
Certainly, President Roosevelt understood, because he used it so well himself, the modern means of communication.
Oh, yeah.
And
He loved
inspiring
movies.
the public.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Did you get much feedback from the films that you did? Did you have a sense that they were accomplishing what they set out to do?
That's a very good question. I think at times we wondered about it, whether it was an invisible something. But it seems that with the idea now of reissuing them, that they become very, very important, and that everybody knew about it. But at that time, no, we were doing our job, and that was it.
Did Walt have any hesitation to use his characters for the wartime purpose?
The answer is no on that. Washington would be only interested in our characters. In other words, why would we do Nazi land if we didn't have the duck, you know? So it played a great role in it, of course. And you got to remember, Mickey Mouse was known all over the world.
Sure.
And every allied country and so on.
Is there one thing that you're proudest of all the war-related films you worked on? Is there one that you think really was an achievement?
I thought Reason and Emotion was. And I think it has some depth and weight to it. It was an idea. And it's applicable to anything in life, as a matter of fact. So, and it was highly praised, which satisfied both Dick and I at the time.
And that's what you get for not listening to reason.
And at that time, doing any kind of serious subject matter in the form of an animated cartoon was, unusual.
We had to readjust a good deal of our thinking. It wasn't something that you would grow out of a lot of gags into growing out of what would be the truth. I mean, it was another world. It was such a forceful situation that everybody was so affected by it. And it's terrible to have a war to stimulate, but it did.
Well, in times of crisis, people do pull together, and there's a unity of purpose, and we saw it after September 11th again.
Flags going up on cars, I mean, everybody realizing the importance of what's going on, and making them aware, just so it doesn't turn out to be a circus, and where cartoons come in again by ridicule.
Joe, thank you very much.
My pleasure.